brain, money machine.
Goldfish brain and money machine. You're going to have to explain that, Sonny.
Yeah, so short memory, constant distraction, one
Mm.
scroll, it's gone. So that's
Squirrel.
squirrel. And then meanwhile, money just keeps flowing, nonstop, focused, and very organized by very wealthy people that do not have our best interest in mind. So what's actually going on here? So like who are we talking about? Are we talking about Congress?
I don't know. Are we? Or are we talking about the wealthy? Are we talking about their owners? Are we talking about Congress? Or are we talking about their
Right,
owners? Is what I would
right.
say.
So like Congress is feckless, which you say is their only one good.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was confused. I thought you meant the Trump, the MAGA people. No, 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 no. I would say being feckless and being inefficient is what Congress was intended to do, though. I would not say it's necessarily good for the modern world. I would say it is precisely what the founders intended Congress to do when they wrote the Constitution and designed Congress as they did.
What? Explain more to me.
Yeah, so Congress has basically what's called a collective action problem. Right, there's a lot of people spread out across two chambers, right? So there's not only multiple people, there's multiple institutions, right? There's multiple chambers of
Yeah.
Congress, and that makes it hard to coordinate and make decisions and get things done. This was on purpose, right? The founders thought that the Congress would be the strongest branch of government, which is funny now, because at the time the House of Representatives was the only part of the federal government that was directly elected by some set of the people. Right, it was just people like me. I was just in Colonial Williamsburg. Apparently, in Virginia, they called them freeholders, and so that meant you were a white person who owned property. Oh, well, sorry, excuse me. It's not you, Tracy, Sonny. You cannot be a freeholder. It meant a white man who owned property, right? And so, anyways, those were the only people who could vote. They voted for the House of Representatives. The Senate was selected by state legislatures, and the president was and still is to this day selected by the Electoral College, right? And at the time, the people had no vote, even the freeholders or whoever had no vote in the Electoral College. So they thought because of this tie, the Congress would be really strong. So ironically, they wanted to make the Congress sort of weak on purpose. And the idea was it was better to have good ideas not become law than to have one bad idea become the law. So I always call it a status quo system of government. The entire system of government is meant to protect the status quo on purpose. And the idea is any change should be a really smart one, right? So it should take a long time. You should have the House, who's elected by one set of people, agree on it, and the Senate, selected by a different set of people, agree on it, and the president, selected by another set of people, agree on it, right? You have all these different institutions and people with different perspectives, and if you can ever get them to all agree, well, then it must be a really good idea.
To me, it's like, and I put it in my book here about Congress and everything, but the friction is the point,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is so things don't get super messed up. But so the Senate's there supposed to be kind of like keeping things maintained, right? The elders. And there's like 100 of them, and they all get like two per state, right? So it's all kind of even Steven kind of stuff. And then you get the House, which is kind of like the view of the day.
Yeah.
Whatever is fucking going on, this is kind of, and then you can see MAGA, you can see more liberal movements and all that other stuff, and those flow pretty rapidly through the House. And that's why we
Yeah.
get those major swings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they are elected every 2 years, and then it's based on population of their states, right? So but their main job is to, let's forget about the freemen and where we are today, that everybody gets a vote.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should be represented. You know, fuck the founders for being racist, slaveholders, native killers, blah, 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 land stealers. We're here now in the present. And the system's supposed to work for us,
Mm-hmm.
correct? We pay them in our taxes.
Yeah.
But then, but it doesn't seem like they're actually working for the people that voted them in. So what happened?
Yeah, there's a whole mix. That's a great question. And there's a whole mix of things there, right? One thing I would say is gerrymandering and the way that they draw districts, right? We have computers now so gerrymandering is when you draw a congressional district for political purposes. That's completely constitutional and legal, according to the Supreme Court. If Republicans control a state, they can try to elect as many Republicans as possible. Democrats can do the same. The thing is, computers now can make really biased districts, really Democrat, really Republican districts, or they can make them really fair. Right. But what we have now are really biased ones. And so the only people elected from those very Republican districts are MAGA Republicans, or very Democratic districts are far left Democrats. Right. And so there's no sort of middle. Right. And those people aren't going to compromise. Those people aren't going to find common ground. You could use computers to make it all 50-50. Right. And then you'd elect moderates who might not all the time. Right. But you'd have more interest in compromise as opposed to partisan warfare, one would think. Right.
Right.
A second thing is even this idea that, it's where we all get a say, like we don't all get an equal say. We know that, right? What I always say is it's the United States of America, not the United People of America, right? So we're taught and socialized like, oh, this great democracy. And like that's true and everything to an extent, right? But we know that it's uneven, right? And we know that something like 25 senators representing something like 20 to 25% of the American population could stop policies supported by 75, 80% of the population due to the filibuster, right? We know that presidents can get elected without winning the popular vote, right? We know all these anti-majoritarian things can happen. And that's because it's not actually a system based on the people. It's a system based on the states, right? From the start. So that's a couple ways. And then the another way, right, has been this increased dominance of money in politics.
Money?
Yes. And the fact that congressional districts are so large now. Congressional districts, I think it's about 800,000 people live in a congressional district. The size of the House of Representatives and the Senate's never changed, right? It's changed, but it's changed with states being.
But hasn't the House changed?
The House, the last changed in, I believe, the early 1900s. Right, so back in the 1900s, I believe. We should Google it afterwards. Let's make sure that's accurate.
I want to talk about more about the money. Because the money is the thing that seems to has escalated the demise of just like the normal American citizen, right? And yes. I would like Citizens United versus the FEC. I believe that was 2010.
That sounds right. 2000. Yeah. It was during Obama's presidency because Obama famously had that State of the Union where he disagreed. He said he disagreed with the decision, and the Supreme Court justices were unhappy about that because they were right there.
Right. Yes. Yes. And then so like, what happened with that? What is Citizens United? Because that sounds so loving and nice and coming together, but I know it's not. And I know it's like endless money. So could you explain that and then explain like how it affects how our congressional leaders behave?
Yeah, so the basic idea, right, is this group, Citizens United, which was basically just a conservative group, wanted to run ads. I think it was a movie, basically a movie about how bad Hillary Clinton was in the 2008, before the 2008 primaries. There's a set of laws, the McCain-Feingold Bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act was part of them, but there's a whole series of laws in the United States of America that regulate how money's spent in campaigns. One big principle, for example, is disclosure, right? Candidates and parties are supposed to disclose how they spent the money and where they got it from, right? So it's supposed to be transparent. We're supposed to know where all this money's coming from. Citizens United wanted, the law says that like interest groups, unions, corporations cannot spend money directly on politics within 30 days of an election, I think it was. It was either 30 or 90 days of an election. Citizens United wanted to spend money to put this movie on TV within 30 days of the Iowa primaries. And they could not, right? It was ruled that they could not due to these campaign finance laws. And so they appealed under the idea that they just wanted to express their opinion. Their opinion is that Hillary Clinton is a terrible person who shouldn't be the president. And money was the way for them to express that opinion, right? And anybody, and so restricting their ability to buy TV time to run this movie restricted their free speech. In the end, the Supreme Court agreed with them, right? And said, money is a way to basically a megaphone, right? It's a way to make your voice louder. And if you have money, we can't keep you from using it to make your voice louder. That's the basic logic of the decision. I would say, just as my own personal aside, right, this logic rests on previous Supreme Court decisions and previous legal fictions. I would say that corporations are people, my friend, which is what Mitt Romney said in the 2012 campaign. Corporations legally are treated the same as you and me and anyone watching this podcast in the United States of America, right?
Corporations are like people, and they can spend as much as they want to on campaigns and people and whatnot. That really seems to, like, the real people have lost because we do not have as much money as corporations.
And right, whereas I think it's money, not only giving money to campaigns, but if you think of it, it's after. Right? These corporations and these wealthy individuals will take care of you and your family for the rest of your lives and perhaps generations to come.
Could you explain that?
Well, think of like a Jeff Flake or somebody, or Tom Tillis right now. You see Tom Tillis, right? Like pretending to take a stand against Trump, but not really taking a stand against Trump. And that's because when Tom Tillis retires next year, my man is going to go to the Heritage Foundation or somewhere else run by these wealthy assholes, and he's going to get a job there that pays him more than he made as a United States Senator, probably. You know who else is going to get a job there? Probably his spouse, probably his kids, maybe some nieces and nephews, right? And so these people are in these networks. I think we all look at like, oh, the campaign finance. I think that's all important too. But also, like, these people are bought and paid for and controlled, in my opinion, right? Like, Jeff Flake can say Trump bad. Jeff Flake cannot vote against that Trump budget that helps his wealthy patrons, right? And so I think that's where you see a lot of these Republicans who are, Susan Collins, they're like, oh, let me take this stand. But they're never actual stands, never do. Right? Because if they took actual stands, all their owners would drop them and they would lose the gravy train, right?
So you've got rich people, you've got corporations, and you've got actual foreign countries, other countries dumping money into our government. And then there we are, and I want to bring up the goldfish brain and how ineffective we are because we got goldfish brain. We can't stay on one thing at a time. I mean, again, just gonna plug my book here, How to Be an Active American Citizen. And it's a workbook because you got to pick one thing. And your one thing might be different from somebody else's, but it's going to be one thing that kind of, we all have to do something, right? Yeah. And there are
I legalized marijuana. You're welcome. I did my part.
Thank you. Back to goldfish brain.
Yeah.
Which is like really a problem with everybody. And before the pandemic, I'm an old corporate marketer, so I've taken lots of classes and whatnot. And there was one seminar I was in, and it's always stuck. And this is, you have to see something at least 7 times before the message resonates. So you might see my social is obnoxious right now because all I'm doing is plugging my book.
See it.
But it's because nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to be like, whatever that is, I don't care, and just keep going. Now, that was in like 2016, which was a decade ago. And before days, before pandemic, before Trump, before just...
Trump and all his friends are working for the corporate people who are stealing all your money, right? The entire purpose of this enterprise is to steal all your money, because I think that is both true and accurate, and people care about their money, right? And so, And it's tough. I think, you asked how did we get here before, where it seems like Congress is paying more attention to the corporations and the wealthy than the people who elect them. Part of it is we stop paying attention or caring. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not. A stat that I always come back to, right, is 56% of Americans 16 and older read at or below the sixth grade level, right? And so I think, that it's hard to understand all this information if you have not developed the literacy to do so, right, in the first place. And then how is it that,
What you're saying is that if you're not rich or a corporation, which is a person, you're fucked here.
Or you have to band together, right? And that's like the interest groups are our only hope sort of thing, or like protests or something. Again, like, yeah, there you go. All right, so Sonny, so to sort of summarize the situation here, as I understand how you see it, let me tell me if this is right. So we have, the people have this goldfish brain. We're sort of underfunded, overworked, and undereducated, right? Yeah, undereducated. Dumb and dumber. Meanwhile, there's this money machine pumping money into politics, trying to control outcomes, right, and trying to get what they want. And again, this is allowed because we're not paying attention, in part, because we don't make enough money. We're busy. But so let's talk a little bit about why this matters, right? So what sort of like real world human consequences do you think this has, or should we care, right? Or just like maybe these corporations are just gonna do the best for us after all?
Oh, why should we care? We should care a fuck ton.
Yeah, what are the human effects of this?
Yeah, so one, corporations are especially if they're publicly traded, they have one main purpose. It is to make money and make more money each year, quarter over quarter, year over year. And that is it. If they don't care, if you go down to the basics, it's about the money. However, to make that money, less and less people, great. It's all about the bottom line and the top line. How much are we going to make? How much are we going to keep? And how much do we put back in to the money machine? So this corporations, like, they have to give you health insurance. They have to do these things because there are laws, there are just responsibilities. Nobody would work for you, right? They still have to abide by some human standards, but really we're in late stage capitalism that if corporations are people and they only care about money, they don't care about people because everything is being invested for those people called corporations. And they don't give a shit about me and you anymore and the common man.
And I think also understand that we have common interests, right? And again, when we work together, we got a 40-hour work week, we pass child labor laws, we got minimum wage, right? And I think the thing that I think is so sad is people don't understand it's all connected. And the people who are making $300,000 a year don't realize that that's not going to protect them, right? Nope. They don't realize that the wealthy are coming for all that money too, right? They're the same as the people making $20,000 a year,
really.
Don't
understand
but they don't understand that they're not, right? And nope. that's part of the sad part. And, and a lot of the people making $20,000 a year think they're different and don't realize that they have the same interests too. And so, yeah, I think this common humanity and working together, right? But again, it's very difficult because none of our media is focused to that. None of our, it's all focused on the divisions, not the commonalities. And so, yeah, somehow we have to see the commonalities and work together.
We got to see the commonalities.
Yeah.
And then I think that's a good way and we got to stop. But again, read my book.
Yes, and be an active American citizen.
Yeah, it's like a workbook. It's to pull you away from the internet and write shit down, right? There's like spaces. So
I can guarantee you that doing things off the internet is more satisfying than doing things on the internet. I promise.